問題は角度だ。
Shinichi is just an average dumb loser until a parasite tries to take over his brain, misses, and gets stuck in his right hand instead. Trapped in this strange partnership, the two are forced to work as allies, battling other deadly parasites while desperately trying not to get each other killed. Late at night, an old couple is quietly standing in a room when the man's head splits open, turning into a monster that quickly attacks the woman and eats her head. Meanwhile, Shinichi Izumi is in bed when he hears a strange voice talking about a failure. He confusingly looks around but doesn't see anything, so he thinks it was just a dream. During breakfast, he sits with his parents and mutters that his right hand feels numb, so his father says it's probably from wrapping his earphone cord around it in his sleep. He turns down the bacon and eggs she made and asks for toast instead. When he sees a spider on the table, he panics and burns his tongue with his coffee, so his mum asks why he's still afraid of bugs. While walking to school, his classmate Murano tries to sneak up on him from behind, but he suddenly grabs her hand. When he turns around, he accidentally touches her chest, so she annoyingly slaps him and walks away. A girl from his class, Tachikawa, hands his glasses to him. In class, Shinichi dreams of last night. While he was lying in bed, a worm-like creature tried to enter his ear, but couldn't, so it went to his nose instead, but he hurriedly sneezed it out. He hurriedly tried to hit it, but the creature jumped on his hand and entered through it. Shinichi desperately tied his earphone cord tightly around his arm to stop it, and his parents came running. But they don't see anything in his hand, so his father asked if he's doing drug. Presently, Shinichi wakes up in front of his teacher, who questions why he's using his phone during class, surprising him. Later, Shinichi tries to say sorry to Murano, but she doesn't listen to him, so Tachikawa says she'll do it for him and asks why he's been acting weird all day. Shinichi decides to go home early, and on the way, he unexpectedly manages to stop a right car from hitting a girl on the road like Superman. Back home, Shinichi rushes to his room and gets ready to stab his hand, but it suddenly transforms into a talking creature. The creature tells him it Keita, his hand, and lives in it now. When Shinichi attacks, it easily throws the knife at the wall and asks him to teach it how to speak. Later, Shinichi wakes up to see the creature studying, and it admits it doesn't know where it came from and needs more information. It reveals that if it had managed to reach his brain, Shinichi would have become a full parasite and suggests that they could work together. The next morning, Shinichi surprises his parents by calmly removing a spider and asking for bacon and eggs when he doesn't usually eat much. Bro's gonna become the strongest man on the planet.
I've been working out.
On his way to school, the creature tells him not to go to the police or he'll be treated like an experiment, and suddenly senses another creature nearby. It tells Shinichi to follow it, and he's shocked to see a dog infested with another creature. It sees that the creature was only able to infest Shinichi's right hand, seeing which Shinichi's parasite hurriedly tells him to run. When they reach school, the parasite quickly kills the dog by removing its heart and admits it won because it had more information, hearing which Shinichi reminds himself a monster is living in his arm. Three guys are harassing a woman on the street when another man suddenly shows up and knocks them all out. He offers to walk the woman home, but on the way the three men unexpectedly attack him again. The man complains that his stomach can't handle eating 4 people, then quickly kills all of them, including the woman, and changes his appearance. Meanwhile, Shinichi is walking to school as the parasite decides to call itself Miji, which means right. During gym class, Shinichi impresses everyone by making a basketball shot. Tachikawa tells him that if he scores again, Murano might forgive him. Another student, Kazuki Nagai, purposely steps on Shinichi's foot to distract him, but Shinichi scores again with Miji's help because a weird alien always gives protagonist Jiga Chad powers. After class, Shinichi apologizes to Murano, so she says she'll forgive him if he buys her pancakes. As she walks away, Miji suddenly changes into something weird, embarrassing Shinichi. Murano sees his reaction and gets confused, but before he can explain, Nagai pulls him away. Outside, Nagai punches Shinichi, but Miji suddenly stretches out and hits him in the face, scaring him off. Later, in the bathroom, Shinichi tells Miji not to talk when other people are around. As he washes his hands, Miji becomes curious about how reproduction works and starts messing with Shinichi's private parts. But Shinichi quickly stops him before another student walks in and is confused to see Shinichi talking to himself. After school, Tachikawa tells Shinichi about disturbing murder cases happening around the world where victims are torn apart, now called the mincemeat murders. At home, Shinichi tells Miji they should do something to stop the killers, but Miji refuses and warns him not to get involved, threatening to hurt him if he puts them both in danger. When Shinichi calls Miji a devil, Miji says that from what it's learned, humans are more like demons than anything else. Later, while Shinichi is outside, Migi senses another parasite nearby. Shinichi decides to face it and lures it to a playground where the creature introduces itself as the bee cuts off its own arm and asks Miji to merge with it so they can share a body. Miji rejects the offer and kills B. When Shinichi asks if Miji saved him on purpose, Miji says it wasn't sure merging would even work, so he quietly thanks him as Miji goes to sleep. The next day, Shinichi takes Murano out for pancakes, and they later go to a playground. They see 3 boys throwing rocks at a cat buried in the sand, but Shinichi saves the cat and tells the boys that animals to cut it out and not be a bunch of jerks. The kids annoyingly say it's just a cat and no one asked him to butt in, but Shinichi says animals aren't toys, they're alive just like them. As he turns away, they throw more rocks, but Shinichi catches them all and menacingly asks if he wants him to eat them. Later, he and Murano walk home holding hands and she asks if he's still the same Shinichi, so he smilingly says yes. On the train, Tamiya tells a man she'd like if he stopped weirdly touching other people's bodies, so he hurriedly says he didn't do anything and asks for proof. However, when the train stops, she throws him out and leaves as well. During breakfast, Shinichi's father tells him the total number of people killed by the mincemeat murders has now reached 84, so his wife sadly says this doesn't even surprise her anymore. Shinichi decides to get up and remarks that he may be the only person in the whole world who knows the truth behind those murders. He runs into Murano on the way, who says he's changed recently, but Miji senses that another parasite is nearby. Shinichi says there haven't been any mincemeat murders recently, but Miji suggests it might be possible that they simply haven't found any bodies yet. As it gets closer to them, Shinichi realizes it's in their school. During the presentation, Miji tells Shinichi to not act suspicious since it's looking for them too but isn't able to locate them because of the crowd. The principal introduces a new math teacher. Ryoko Tamiya and Miji tells Shinichi it's her. As soon as they make eye contact, Tamiya realizes that Shinichi has a parasite inside his right hand. Miji tells Shinichi that Tamiya seems to be trying to live like a normal human and isn't a threat to them or anyone else for now. Tamiya suggests they go somewhere more private so they can talk in detail, so Miji agrees to meet her after school. Later, Tamiya brings another parasite named A with her. A asks who the hell he is and questions how they can consider him one of their kind, so Tamiya tells him to stop it, since there's no advantage in trying to kill each other here. Tamiya reveals that she is pregnant with a human child after sleeping with A. She explains that whenever a parasite has a baby, whether with a human or another parasite, the baby is always a regular human since parasites can't reproduce more of their own kind. Sounds like a surefire way for a species to die out. As they're talking, A gets up and says he's leaving since knowing what he is won't change anything. He will eat when he feels hungry and will eliminate any who stand in his way. As he walks away, he mutters that Shinichi is dangerous and needs to be eliminated. The next day, A arrives at Shinichi's school and goes on a violent rampage, so the students hurriedly start evacuating and Miji suggests using the other students to slow A down, but Shinichi refuses. Instead, Shinichi runs to a quiet, empty part of the school and starts preparing to fight. He builds a wall of desks and tables to block A's path, so Miji reminds him that since Shinichi still controls his own brain, they have an edge over the other parasite and creates a weapon to help him defend himself. However, A, who is on a lower floor, suddenly confronts Shinichi by jumping through the window. He tells Shinichi he's only cut off his own escape route, and they get ready to fight. A orders Shinichi to just give up since he can't win without total control of his body, and aside from his right hand, his entire body is useless, terrified of any pain. A while back, Miji warned Shinichi that if he became flustered and held him back, they would lose. As Miji starts battling A, Shinichi remarks that he can't just stay scared. He wonders if he can really do this, and remembers how Miji told him they'll delegate roles. He will pretend to attack but focus more on the defense, and Shinichi will be the one who will have to attack. He explains that A's actions thus far have shown that he underestimates human ability, and will probably not have factored Shinichi in the equation at all, which will be their advantage. Presently, Shinichi slowly approaches A as if Miji is dragging him forward and suddenly stabs him in the stomach. Checkmate, baby. Shocked, A stumbles forward but stabs himself to prevent further blood loss. As A is weakly walking, he admits this body is useless now, so his only option is to fight Tamiya and share her body. As he enters the staff room, Tamiya quickly jumps out a window and sets off an explosion in the room. As time passed and life settled down again, school resumed and Tamiya continues to teach as if nothing happened. The staff of the school nervously asks Tamiya if she can tell them who the father of her child is, since they don't want any bad rumors to spread about her, but she mutters that she didn't expect it to end this way and quits the job. She later meets with Shinichi and talks to him about how all animals follow instincts. For parasites, Their instinct is to eat humans, and she says she plans to keep her baby and study it. Tamiya even threatens to kill Shinichi, but she changes her mind when she notices something different about him. That night, Tamiya's mother visits her, but the woman shockingly realizes that her daughter isn't the same person anymore and desperately tries to call the police, but Tamiya swiftly kills her before she can do that. The next morning, Miji tells Shinichi he thinks parasites might be able to switch from one host to another, but only if they entered the host through the head in the first place. Meanwhile, Shinichi's parents are planning a trip to the countryside because of course the best time to chill out is when several monsters are loose in the entire country. Shinichi tells them not to go because of the growing number of deadly attacks linked to parasites, and his mother starts to feel like he's hiding something. She remembers a moment from his childhood when she saved him from a hot oil spill and got burned in the process. Miji tells Shinichi that the chance of running into a parasite in the countryside is very low, so Shinichi tells his parents it's okay to go. Still, his mother senses something different about her son, but Shinichi laughs it off and says he was just being overly cautious because he thought he'd miss them while they were gone, so his parents decide to leave for the trip. Meanwhile, Tamiya is standing alone when she suddenly feels her baby move for the first time. As a couple are in a car, the girl asks what the seatbelt is for, so the man cheerily asks if this is her first time in a car and asks what she's doing as she ties it around herself. However, he gets distracted and their car suddenly crashes. The parasite in the girl remarks that its organs are in shambles and this body will die. It sees what the belt is for since the man looks safe and admits it has no choice but to relocate to this man's body. It decides to go for his head, believing control in the body won't be that different even if it's male. As the man warily wakes up, the parasite instantly kills it and starts entering his body. The next day, while walking to school, Miji tells Shinichi that people around him have started noticing he's acting differently. On the way, Shinichi sees Nagai being beaten up by Mitsuo and his gang. He tries to step in and help and tells them to fight him fairly if they want. However, Mitsuo starts beating Shinichi up, so Kana says, "It's pathetic beating up someone so weak." She leans down and asks Shinichi why he butted into fight when he's so weak. However, she suddenly gets scared when she senses something inside him and asks who he is. Later, as Shinichi and Murano are walking back home, Mitsuo's lackeys grab Murano. They start beating Shinichi up, but he hurriedly keeps trying to stop Miji from coming out and fighting. Luckily, other students from their school, including Kamiju and Nagai, jump in and start fighting Mitsuo and his gang. Later, Murano walks Shinichi home and patches him up. After she leaves, Kana says she came to apologize and asks Shinichi if they're good. However, he senses that something's off when they shake hands, so Shinichi quickly hurries inside. Miji tells Shinichi he should be wary of Kana since it looks like she has the ability to sense the same wavelengths that parasites can. Meanwhile, the injured parasite from earlier continues wandering down the highway, looking for a new female body to take over. It ends up running into Shinichi's parents, Nobuko and Kazuyuki, and suddenly kills Noko by cutting off her head and taking over her body. Later, Kazuyuki manages to survive and warily calls Shinichi. He says he's going to the police and will get that monster, shocking Shinichi, who wonders what happened. Later, when the parasite, now inside Nobuko's body, returns home, Shinichi is shocked and refuses to believe that his mother is really dead. He even points a knife at Miji to stop him from attacking her, hoping that some part of her is still deep inside her. However, Miji says it's planning to go back and make sure Kazuyuki is dead, and admits it doesn't have any of Nobuko's memories or feelings. Shinichi stares at the scar on her wrist, the one from when she saved him as a child, hoping for some sign that his real mother is still inside, but the parasite suddenly stabs him through the chest. The parasite says it pierced the heart, so the human will die instantly, and so will Miji. It tells him to accept his fate as one who failed to seize the head. As it walks away, Miji remarks that there's no time to lose, since a direct hit to heart can't be repaired in mere minutes, but if he does nothing, Shinichi will die, so his only option is to merge himself with Shinichi's heart that awaits at each shop. Miji quickly leaves Shinichi's right hand and enters the wound to keep him alive and temporarily takes over the role of his heart so the real one can heal, planning to return to Shina's hand through his bloodstream later. The next day, Shinichi doesn't show up at school, worrying Murano. That night, Shinichi wakes up and realizes he doesn't need his glasses now. He takes off his shirt and sees that the hole has been completely sealed, so he wonders if Miji healed him. He gets a call from Sakurazaki Hospital, so he hurriedly asks if something's happened to his dad. The attendant informs him he's fine and asks if he can bring over some essentials when he visits, so Shinichi says he'll come right away. As he leaves the house, he runs into Murano and tells her he'll be gone for a while. She worryingly asks if he'll come back, so he smiles and remarks that he'll kill the parasite. At the hospital, the police inform Kazuyuki that his wife is alive since after he fell into the sea. She returned to the hotel room alone and told the staff Kazuyuki had to leave urgently for work. Kazuyuki hurriedly says that's not possible, but the doctor tells him he must have had a nightmare. When Shinichi visits his father, he depressingly visits his dad and is shocked to see that Kazuyuki thinks he had a nightmare. However, he sees that he does know Nobuko is dead and wishes he could tell him what the monster really is. Shinichi realizes he can't live at a hotel since it's too far away and decides to stay at a nearby inn which is run by the family of a girl he met on the ferry. That night, Miji decides to tell Shinichi something. He understands that his feelings towards his family are quite strong, and in comparison, he considers Miji more of a nuisance. The day he repaired Shinichi's body, he also underwent change during the process and now has a weakness that others of his kind don't. For about 4 hours a day, he falls asleep, and during those 4 hours, he won't be able to sense danger or react to anything happening around them, leaving them both completely vulnerable. He admits he didn't tell him before since he thinks Shinichi harbors animosity towards his kind now that one of them have killed his mother. However, Shinichi says he doesn't consider him an enemy since he saved his life. The next morning, the girl sees that Shinichi is looking better now since he seemed pretty haggard yesterday. Later, as Shinichi is sitting outside the hospital, wondering what he should do about his mom's killer, the girl from before, Makiko, sits beside him and asks if he has a girlfriend, but Miji quickly informs him a parasite is 300 meters away in the direction of the beach. Shinichi quickly asks Maki where the road to the beach is, so she points it out but says he'll run a seawall. When he reaches it, Miji asks Shinichi if he can really kill her, so he confirms this and jumps up the wall, surprising Maki. As he's running, Miji tells Shinichi he needs to tell him something else as well since he's only just become certain of it. But Shinichi remarks that he'll make the parasite pay and tells it to stop. Shinichi confronts the man and gets ready, muttering that it wasn't the one he was looking for, but it's still a monster. However, Miji tells him this one still has a human brain. The parasite cheerily reveals that it lives in the man's jaw. The man explains his wife left him after a year of marriage, but he didn't have the guts to actually kill himself. The man was sadly sitting on the ground when the parasite suddenly jumped towards him, but the man accidentally fell into the ocean, and since it couldn't reach the brain, the parasite matured in the jaw instead, which kept both of them alive. The man says he wasn't sure who he would run into, but he's relieved to see him since he had no idea there were others like him. He introduces himself as Moriyuta, and the parasite decides to just call itself Parasite. They head to the hospital where Yuta is really sad to hear what happened to Shinichi's mum. Yuta says he works at a hotel in the next town over and says he'll let him know the moment his enemy shows up. Shinichi remarks that he's glad since he didn't know there were other people like him, people who could be his allies. Later, Miji wakes Shinichi up in the middle of the night since he missed his chance to tell him something important when they met Yuta. He reminds Shinichi that he ran at the speed of an Olympic athlete today and leapt more than 3 meters high. He reveals that he can break off parts of his body, but they get less and less intelligent, so he issues a mental directive in Advancer, come together as one. However, there are places where even the smallest fragments of his body can survive, including anywhere inside Shinichi's body. Shinichi shockingly realizes what he means, so Miji confirms that the Miji talking to him right now only accounts to 70% of his original self. He explains that he broke off parts of him to heal Shinichi and sent several fragments throughout his body, but his restored heart was much stronger than expected. His fragments scattered throughout Shinichi and have become so small that his body he can no longer communicate with them. Shinichi remarks that no matter how sad he felt today, he couldn't cry, so this might be why. The next day, the parasite inside Nobuko's body arrives in town and Parasite senses it right away, so Shinichi goes after it. However, Miji has to enter his scheduled sleep cycle, so he transforms into a blade to give Shinichi a fighting chance while he's inactive. Eventually, the parasite tracks down Yuta and Parasite on a cliff and they start fighting, but Yuta gets stabbed in the chest and falls into the water. Shinichi arrives soon and takes on the parasite himself. Thanks to his improved body, he's able to dodge attacks and fight back effectively, but just as he's about to deliver the final blow, he sees a familiar burn scar on the parasite's wrist, the same one his mother had from saving him years ago. That suddenly makes him hesitate, giving the parasite a chance to attack him. However, Yuta's parasite reappears at the last second and catches the parasite off guard, killing it. It reveals that it had moved Yuta's heart to a different place in his body to protect him from serious injury earlier. Later, as Shinichi and his father get ready to leave town, Maki says she hopes to see him again someday. Back in the city, Kana suddenly senses Shinichi's presence and realizes he's nearby, while Murano sees Shinichi and happily greets him. Tamura orders a parasite to keep a close eye on Izumi Shinichi and observe him without killing him since he poses some danger to them, but is also a valuable asset in determining the future of their species. Meanwhile, As Kana is walking, Mitsuo asks if she's going to see Shinichi again and questions if she's really into him, so she says that's none of his business. After school, Mitsuo tells Shinichi he needs to talk to him. He takes him to the yard and asks if he slept with Kana, but Shinichi says he hasn't even seen her recently since he went on a trip. Mitsuo tries to fight him, but Shinichi easily dodges and warns him this won't go like last time. He trips Mitsuo up and leaves with Murano. As they're walking, she asks Shinichi if something happened to him on the trip, but he says he was just using his dad's injury to ditch school for a bit. Sitting on a bench, Kana senses that Shinichi is getting close, but she sees that he's walking with Murano and turns away. When Shinichi gets home, he finds his father drinking and tells him to go easy on that a bit. He says he looked up online and learned that people recommend hiring housekeepers in these situations. His dad asks what he's talking about, so he mutters that he's talking about when someone who used to handle your meals isn't around you anymore, so his dad warily tells him to go ahead if he wants to hire a housekeeper. As he's lying in bed, Shinichi tells Miji he feels like he's lost a part of him, but Miji says that's senseless. The next morning, he finds a badly hurt dog on the road and picks it up, hoping to save it, but it dies in his arms. Not knowing what to do, he puts the dog's body in a trash bin, shocking Murano. Later realizing how wrong it looked, Shinichi goes back and gives the dog a proper burial. At school, Miji tells Shinichi that Shimada is a parasite. When Shinichi talks to him, Shimada says he tries to eat like a regular person and doesn't kill humans for food. He also claims that both he and Reiko Tamura are looking for a way for parasites to live without harming people. Even though he seems peaceful, Shinichi doesn't fully trust him. Later, Kana senses a parasite nearby and assumes it's Shinichi, but she actually senses Shimada, so he starts taking her somewhere since he wants to talk. However, Shinichi stops him and warns that he'll kill him if anything happens to anyone he knows, so Shimada walks away and Kana's eyes have a strange look. She cheerily asks Shinichi to walk her to the station, so he agrees but turns around to see Murano, who walks away. Shinichi warns her not to depend too much on this sense, as it might get her into trouble. At home, Tachikawa makes a sketch of Shimada and blushingly says it looks pretty good while in an alleyway. Shimada is revealed to be a parasite. Kana sees Shimada behind her, so she starts running, but Mitsuo stops her and steps forward to fight him, saying it's none of her business who he chooses to fight. However, Shimada easily defeats him and says he'd rather avoid causing trouble, which is why he went easy on him, but if he comes looking for a fight again, he'll end him. Shimada watches Shinichi from afar and remarks that the signal coming from his hand is weak again, but if he sends a strong signal with no warning, he should react reflexively, especially if it's a hostile signal. However, Shinichi just walks off. During class, Akio admits to Tachikawa that Shimada is the hottest guy she's seen in school, and it's like he's got plastic surgery, hearing which Tachikawa starts to wonder if Shimada is hiding something. At home, the investigators tell Shinichi's father they can't go public since they don't want to spread panic due to a lack of credible information. They admit they don't have the means to distinguish parasites from real humans. They show him a sketch and ask if this is accurate, so Shinichi's father admits it is, so they realize these creatures can transform into literally anything. Meanwhile, Hirokawa and Tamura talk about how destructive people can be, not only to each other but also to the world around them. Later on, Tachikawa finds a sketch her brother Haruki made. He works as a police sketch artist, and the drawing shows what a parasite looks like. The next day, she sees Shimada get injured badly in the head, an injury that would normally be fatal, but he heals right in front of her eyes. Just as Shimada might reveal his true form, Shinichi shows up and scares off Mitsuo's gang. Meanwhile, Shinichi's personality continues to change. He becomes colder and more distant, which worries Murano. She begins to keep her distance, and Miji tells Shinichi these changes are expected since they're a side effect of his growing mental toughness after everything he's been through. Takakawa, still suspicious, decides to secretly follow Shimada after school and watches him change his face, realizing her suspicious was right. At home, she tells her brother, Haruki, she wanted to ask him something. He admits they don't really know what these parasites are, but it's true that their faces can change, and according to witnesses, they also speak human language and eat people. He tells her to try to be careful if she's walking around alone at night. However, he admits their numbers are relatively few, so she probably won't ever run into one. As she's about to sleep, she wonders if Shimada is actually eating people, but she isn't sure of what would happen if she's wrong, so she decides to talk to Shimada first, because of course she has to go with the dumbest possible option. Tachikawa calls Shimada to meet her in a classroom and says she's pretty sure he's never noticed her before, but she's always thought he was a really cool guy and has been watching him. She says she doesn't want to think he's different from the rest of them, but if he is what the rumors claim, if he's something that kills and eats human beings, She wants him to go home without a word and never come back here again because she doesn't want him to kill anyone anymore. She asks if he really kills people as Miji informs Shinichi, who angrily gets up. Shinichi hurriedly asks Miji if he just woke up and leaves the classroom. Shimada tells Tachikawa to not move since it'll only hurt if she does. She hurriedly throws a bottle of acid at him and his face starts burning before Tachikawa hurriedly jumps out the window. Shimada remarks that he morphed without thinking and some of it got inside him. He leaves the room and starts walking to restore his human appearance and kills 3 men who try to approach him. Miji says he's headed to his classroom, but Shinichi sees a huge crowd of students gathered and Miji says it'll be hard to fight here, so Shinichi helps get the other students out of the building. However, in the middle of the chaos, he realizes Murano's class isn't among the evacuees, so he hurriedly runs back to school. Inside, Shinichi is shocked to find the bodies of students who've been killed by Shimada, but he pulls himself together and keeps searching. He finally finds Murano alive and sees that the 2 students with her didn't survive, so he quickly picks her up and carries her outside. Once they're far enough from the danger, Shinichi comes up with a plan. Knowing that Shimada can't detect people from a distance, he uses that to his advantage and throws a large rock with perfect aim, hitting Shimada straight in the heart and killing him. Later, during a government meeting, officials talk about how to tell parasites apart from humans. They explain that if you pull out a parasite's hair, it moves a little on its own, something human hair doesn't do. Due to this, people in Shinichi's area start checking each other's hair as a new way to greet and confirm someone isn't a parasite. Mirasite and Murano thank Shinichi for rescuing her. A drunk woman is sitting next to her coworker when she cheerily pulls out a strand of hair. When the hair twitches unnaturally, she shockingly realizes he's a parasite, so he mutters that she's put him on the spot. As another parasite is walking by, he asks for help since she caught him by the air, and she mutters that she doesn't care for drunken meat. Meanwhile, Kana has a dream where Shin appears as her heroic savior, like a knight in shining armor, and saves her from a lot of creepy monsters. As Shinichi is walking, Kana tries to pull out a strand of hair, but he grabs her hand and says she shouldn't do that without warning. He tells her to go ahead if she wants, so she does, and is surprised to see it's normal, but she still stores it in a tissue. As they're waking, she asks if he knew Shimada was a mass murderer from the start, so he says he didn't and remarks that this girl is special, so he could just tell her everything. Miji says he knows what he's thinking, but warns that Kana isn't his ally, so Shinichi warns her once again not to trust the strange feeling she gets towards certain people since it could lead her to a dangerous parasite instead of him. She suggests that she could just pluck out their hair, but he insists that she can't do that, so she admits it makes her happy that he's worried about her. Despite having a conversation with Murano, Kana refuses to back down and decides she wants to make Shinichi fall for her. Meanwhile, a new parasite named Goto appears, and to test his strength, he attacks and kills an entire group of armed Yakuza gang members without any trouble. Later, he meets up with another parasite named Kusano while during a date with Shinichi. Murano tells him he's been acting differently since returning from his trip to visit his dad. While they're out, Shinichi sees a young boy yelling at his mom, and even after Murano kisses him, she still doubts whether he's truly the Shinichi she once knew. The next day, as Shinichi waits for Kana, Miji suddenly senses a large group of parasites gathered nearby. They're attending a political rally led by Takashi Hirokawa, a man running for office, and Shinichi alarmingly sees Goto and Kazano in the rally. However, he suddenly realizes Goto has sensed him. Miji tells Shinichi that Tamiya was a surprise, but now they have a politician, so he can't possibly get elected without a solid grasp of human psychology. Shinichi believes he won't get elected since he'll show his true colors soon, but Miji points out that Tamiya is in town too. Shinichi wonders what his goal is, so Miji says the first possibility is that he developed a real interest in politics by assuming a human identity and studying mankind, so he may actually become a decent mayor. The second possibility is that he wants to secure a safe haven and food source for parasites. Shinichi realizes things would get even more dangerous if that happens. He remarks that Kana's ability to sense parasites isn't as strong as his, but this places her in too much danger. Later, Miji says he'd prefer that they don't get involved in this situation since they'd lose if they fight them. However, Shinichi says he's not going to do that and runs into Kana. They sit down and he asks if she's felt that sensation for anyone besides him, so she says she has. Shinichi repeats that he wants her to keep her distance if she ever signals, so she hurriedly asks if he's a parasite too, but Mitsuo suddenly appears behind them and tells Kana they need to talk. Bro's jealous because Shinichi's become a Giga Chad all of a sudden. At home, Miji says he doesn't want Shinichi to tell Kana the truth since it could put them at risk. The next day, ignoring Miji's warning, Shinichi decides to tell Kana everything while Miji is asleep and can't stop him. He explains what the parasites are and how Miji lives inside him, and Kana doesn't fully believe it, but says she can still tell who Shinichi is by a special feeling she gets. A while later, Hirokawa is officially elected as mayor, and the next day, Miji senses a weak signal coming from Kana, the same kind of signal given off by parasites. Shinichi realizes this means Kana could be mistaken for a parasite and get targeted. Mitsuo tries to get Kana to give up chasing after Shinichi, but she refuses to back off, so Shinichi asks Miji to show himself to Kana when needed, so she'll know everything he said is true. The next day, Shinichi cancels a date with Murano to meet Kana since she wants to prove her ability to sense him as real. However, instead of finding Shinichi, Kana ends up tracking a real parasite as Migi senses the danger too, and he and Shinichi rush to help her. When Shinichi arrives, Kana smiles and runs toward him, but before she reaches him, the parasite stabs through the chest with a blade, and she collapses in front of Shinichi. Infuriated, Shinichi gets ready to fight, and the parasite tries to slash him, but he dodges every attack and strikes back before the punch in Parasite's chest, slamming it into a wall. The parasite dies, and Shinichi drops its heart to the ground in disgust. Kana weakly tells Shinichi she loves him and passes away in his arms. At the funeral, two investigators, Hirama and Choji, question Shinichi and find out that a parasite killed his mother before. Mitsuo angrily blames him for not protecting Kana, but Shinichi beats him up and walks away. He frustratingly wonders if his brain has been taken over without him knowing, since no matter how hard he tries, he can't shed a single tear. As Shinichi is sadly walking home, thinking of Kana, Murano holds his hand to comfort him. Meanwhile, it's revealed that a group of parasites, including Kazano, Goto, Tamura, and Hirokawa, have created a plan. They've divided feeding areas among themselves to avoid attracting too much attention and to improve their chances of surviving. Goto says the end result is that they've provided humans with another sample and the perpetrator has yet to come forward. They learn that Shinichi was the one who killed him, and he most likely snapped when he saw that his friend was murdered. They ask if his brain is entirely human, so Tamura confirms that he is coexisting with his parasite and one could call him a valuable sample. They believe he could be a threat, but Tamura says she's making an effort to secure a better future for them all and asks them to consider her investigation of him as being a part of that endeavor. They ask how her child is, so she says it's living a normal life, and although she's rearing it with human assistance, she would first need to let it grow a bit more. She private detective named Shiro Kuramori to secretly follow Shinichi and report on what he does, so Kuramori says he seems to just be an average high school student, hearing which Tamiya mutters that human powers of observation impressive, but there are some things only humans are capable of. Tamura sends some hired men to pick a fight with Shinichi while Kuramori watches from afar and secretly records the entire scene, but Shinichi easily beats them all up and learns that they were sent by a woman. As the students are walking home, Tachikawa tells Murano that Shinichi seems too normal even though a girl he knew died in front of him. As she walks off, Murano remembers that back when he saved her life, he was also really calm and strong and felt like a totally different person, so she wonders if there really was nothing between him and Kana. However, she tells herself that that's not the point. Shinichi asks what's wrong, so Murano says she has to go take care of something and walks off alone. In a restaurant, Kuramori shows Tamura the footage and admits it was a shock to see how fast Shinichi could move, so Tamura asks if he noticed anything else unusual, but he admits he didn't. Shinichi visits the place where Kana died to mourn her properly. Kuramori follows him there, and Miji senses him nearby and tries to kill him but fails. However, he manages to take the man's camera to stop him from spreading what he filmed. Later, Shinichi starts to worry since if the footage from the camera is seen by the wrong people, he could be taken away and used for experiments because of his connection to Miji. He remarks that he wants to tell Murano everything that's been going on, but Miji warns him that if he reveals their secret, he'll be forced to kill her to protect them both. Shinichi tells Miji he's worried that if Kuramori was watching them again, he'd start treating Murano like a monster too. Miji says if he's continuing his investigation despite his cover being blown, it may mean that the enemy is surprisingly small in number, so it might as well track down everyone involved in the investigation. He admits he's come to realize how much Shini hates the notion of killing other humans, so they must work together and just investigate him. He adds that they'll call an ally and enlist help, so Shinichi asks where in the world they're going to find an ally. They team up with Yuta again to track him down, and Yuta cheerily says there's no need to apologize since he's the only one in the same boat. Uda adds that they decided to give his parasite a name and call him Joe now. Kuramori meets Tamura and mutters that he's thought long and hard about what that thing was, but they haven't been able to come up with anything that makes sense. Tamura says she'll pay him for the work he's done so far, but they should stop for now. Surprised, Kuromori says he still hasn't been able to figure out what that thing was, but Tamura says his story is really unreasonable. He suddenly realizes the real reason she asked him to investigate Shinichi is because of the monster in his right hand, but she tells him to stop and leaves. At home, she remarks that this is the first time she felt a natural urge to laugh and starts manically chuckling, hearing which her baby wakes up. When Kuromori returns home, his wife asks if he got wrapped up in something dangerous since he has bad dreams at night and even got injured, but he says it's nothing much, so she tells him there's nothing to gain by sticking his nose into things that are beyond him. He inwardly tells her to just wait since he's going to surprise everyone. Shinichi finally manages to lure Kuromori and tells him to get into a car. Kuromori asks what they're going to do, so Shinichi says they just want to talk and don't mean any harm, remarking that he doesn't need be terrified. They arrive at a park and Shinichi says he first wants Kuromori to hear their side of the story. He reveals everything that's happened, so Kuromori says he'd normally never believe it under normal circumstances, but given that there's a monster right in front of him, he has to at least believe some of it. Shinichi says he wants him to keep quiet about this, so Kuromori asks if he wants to leave all the other monsters be too, and suggests that he come forward if he really cares about what's best for humanity. The parasites decide to just kill him, but Shinichi hurriedly stops him, so Miji tells Kuromori that if he has the right to live, so do they, and they will do anything they can to survive. Meanwhile, Tamura attends a university lecture about evolution and carefully listens to it while holding her baby. Later, she meets with Shinichi and tells him that some parasites, including herself, are starting to think about how they could live peacefully with humans. While they talk, Tamura figures out that a parasite must have killed Shinichi's mother, and he threatens to kill her, so she coldly uses her baby as a shield. Later, Shinichi visits a fortune teller who reads his palm. She tells him that it feels like there's a hole in his heart and suggests he find peace with the person who caused it, so Shinichi smilingly tells her he's already taken care of it since he killed the one who made that hole in his heart, the parasite who murdered his mom. A parasite, Mickey tricks a woman into going with to a parking lot. Once they're there, he kills and eats both her and one of Kuromori's assistants, muttering that he didn't notice him because of how dense he is. Kuromori goes to Shinichi and asks for his help, explaining that the last thing his assistant said was he was going to the parking lot. Miji annoyingly says that's why they told him he's in way over his head and doesn't sense anyone at the location. However, Shinichi says he can smell something awful. Miji hurriedly says a parasite is coming towards them, and if they leave now, they'll come face to face with it by the entrance. A man brings a girl there and senses another parasite nearby, but he decides to just focus on her. Shinichi hurriedly stops him and tells the woman to run away, but the parasite still kills her. He and Shinichi start fighting while Kuromori records them. Miji admits the parasite's moves aren't bad, but they'll win because he's got a better mount. They manage to kill it, and Miji explains that the weakness of parasites lies below the neck, so they'll always win as long as they can keep that part protected. He says they're in trouble now since this must be one of the coordinated areas Hirokawa's group have decided on, so their actions constitute an act of war against them. Shinichi sees how shocked Kuromori looks and says they need to get out of here as soon as possible if they don't want to get their butts kicked. Outside, Shinichi says they're going to hand over the footage Kuromori recorded to the police, but Miji tells him to not be stupid and they're in that footage too, so Shinichi frustratingly says he can't handle this anymore. However, Kuromori admits he was wrong and he's in over his head this time. He lets Miji destroy the memory card in the camera and says he'll destroy all the other evidence he's gathered so far. Shinichi asks if that didn't mean anything to him, so he declares that it did, but anyone who saw that and still thinks they can fight them is crazy, so Shinichi is just no longer a normal human being. From this day on, he's going to forget about monsters Riko, Tamura, and Shinichi. At night, Shinichi inwardly admits Kuromori was right and wonders what he can do. He reminds Miji they can win on one and decides to not ask for help from any human. Meanwhile, Hirokawa and his group start planning to kill Shinichi, and Tamura even considers dissecting him for research. Hirokawa suggests sending Goto to kill Shinichi, but Goto says Miki might be a better choice for the job. The next day, Miji senses that 3 parasites are heading towards Shinichi. Not wanting anyone else to get hurt, Shinichi leaves for a quiet area in the countryside to face them alone. While Migi is resting, Miki appears and starts chasing Shinichi through the fields. Miji wakes up and realizes all 3 parasites are inside Miki's body. Hirokawa's group tries to kill Kuromori by blowing up his office, and he returns home to shockingly see that his wife and child are dead. Meanwhile, as Shinichi and Miji are fighting Miki, he says their combat style must be unique, which is why they've been able to defeat so many parasites. He asks Shinichi how he usually fights, so Miji says he must be trying to get a feel for them and tells him to keep in mind that it's totally devoid of human emotions. As they're fighting, Miki admits it'll probably be hard to bring back their body intact, but Shinichi runs away as they get overwhelmed. Miji admits he's exhausted since the fight was pretty intense and Shinichi is worn out too. After putting some distance between them, Shinichi suggests that they try going for the legs and Miji agrees. As they start fighting again, Miji says he's getting a clearer picture of Miki's body and it looks dangerous, but it may be more for show than anything else. The parasites are spread throughout his body, but the head is probably still the control center. They run inside a forest and Miji says Miki's movements lack control and they don't have anything to fear since in the end, there's only one enemy. They eventually manage to confuse Miki and cut off his head, but Goto suddenly takes control of the body and they learn that there are 5 total parasites in his body, but only Miki and Goto can control them all. Realizing they're completely outmatched, Shinichi and Miji decide to, instead of fighting, and get on a truck, but Go transforms his legs and manages to catch up to them, so Miji throws him in front of an oncoming truck. Goto slowly gets up and realizes he's lethargic because of the blood loss earlier, so he kills the 2 men in the other truck and eats them. Later, Kuromori, still shaken by the loss of his family, follows Shinichi's earlier advice and meets Detective Harama, who's already investigating the parasites. Harama convinces Kuromori to help the police, but Kuromori soon leaves protective custody and angrily decides to get revenge on his own. He starts secretly following Tamura, whom he believes is responsible for what happened to his family. Later, Shinichi sees a news broadcast and figures out that the parasites are trying to kill Kuromori. Worried that his own father could be in danger next, he calls and urges him to leave town before it's revealed that Shinichi keeps having a creepy dream where he talks with a human-like skeleton version of Miji. Meanwhile, Tamura is getting frustrated with the other parasites and criticizes them for not understanding how powerful and emotional humans can be, especially when their families are harmed. Kusano begins to think Tamura is getting too independent and could become a threat, so he sets up a trap for her with other parasites and says it seems it's more difficult to conceal than difficult. So Tamura says the strongest signal they are capable of emanating is their intent to kill. A parasite asks Tamura why she didn't run, so she says she was curious and let it get the better of her. Kusano reveals that Gato and Hirokawa aren't aware of this and says his reasoning behind this is intuition. He thinks she will pose a great threat to them in the future. She says she thought it would be easy to create a unified organization, but it appears she was wrong. However, it makes her happy to realize that parasites, herself included, have come to possess individual personalities of their own. She sees that this is farewell and asks if they truly thought they would be able to beat her if there were 3 of them. They start fighting, but she swiftly takes out one of them by leaving a part of her in his body and runs off. She scares off a couple, so Kusano realizes she is no longer capable of rational thought and doubts half a parasite can maintain her bodily functions, so this is just parasite. The fragment of Tamura's body kills the man and then enters Hikawa's body. She starts fighting Kusano and alarmingly says she's lost control of everything below her neck, so he's forced to kill her. He questions if this is her intention and orders her fragment to come out since the body she took over has been destroyed, so Tamura appears behind him and instantly kills him. She tells him that the signals he emitted of animosity while fighting Hikawa helped camouflage Tamura, so he questions if even that was part of her plan and dies. When she returns home, she finds out that her baby has been kidnapped by Kuromori, who leaves a note telling her when and where to meet if she wants her child back. She calls Shinichi while looking at pictures of her child and tells him to come to that location too, because there's something she wants to give him. A while later, detectives Harama, Choji, and their team break into Tamura's apartment and find the note and begin to figure out where she's headed. Tamura goes to the abandoned Izumi family house, where she quietly looks through old photos of Shinichi with his parents. She calls Shinichi and asks him to meet her at the place Kuromori picked for their meeting. As she's leaving his house, Tamura runs into Murano and gently tells her that Shinichi will be back soon, which helps calm her down. However, Murano secretly follows Shinichi after that and sees Tamura too, so she continues following them to a spot near the meeting place. At the meeting, Kuromori is holding Tamura's baby and assumes she doesn't really care about her child because she's a parasite. He thinks she might hurt the baby, so he prepares to stop her, but Tamura unexpectedly protects her child by killing Kuromori with a strike through his chest. Later, the detectives find Kuromori just before he dies, and he warns them to go after Tamura. Later, Shinichi finally reaches the meeting place and comes face to face with Tamura. As Shinichi angrily stares at Tamura, Miji tells him they're going to be in trouble if he's short of breath when they fight. Tamura says she would have liked to discuss many things with them both, but she has a bad feeling, so she won't drag this out. She reveals that she's killed 38 people so far, mainly for food, but her numbers are low even among her kind and could supplement the lack of food with what normal humans eat. She reveals that parasites can survive without eating humans, and she's also done much research on humans. Her conclusion is this: they are two halves of the same circle. Parasites and humans are one family. They're the children of the human race. Shinichi angrily asks what she's talking about, so she understands that this is difficult for him to comprehend, but they're fragile. They're a life form that can't survive on its own, so he shouldn't be too rough on them. She decides to give them a word of advice too, and tells them to not fight Goto, because if he had been in control instead of Miki from the start, they would be dead by now. While they're talking, Hirama and other detectives suddenly arrive, and he remarks that he's sure there's something more to Shinichi. He orders the other detectives to not get any closer and asks Tamura if it's really her. He sees that she looks really calm, and they all pull out their guns, but Tamura hurriedly tells them to stop and asks what they're doing. Hirama says he'll take full responsibility and shoots, so Tamura spits the bullet back out and says he did well. The detectives start shooting at her, but instead of fighting back, Tamura focuses only on protecting her baby. Even though she's hurt, she slowly walks towards Shinichi and asks him to listen, but he starts to back away, so she changes her face to look like his mother, Nobuko, which makes Shinichi stop and the detectives stop firing so that they don't hit Shinichi. She says she's been thinking about what her purpose is, and she got the answer yesterday. She says she hasn't done anything to this child. He's a normal human being, and she wants him to lead a normal human life. Tamura gently hands her baby to Shinichi, so he says he understands, surprising Miji. She smilingly says she recently imitated how a human laughs, and it felt rather pleasant. She suddenly collapses and starts bleeding, shocking Miji, who remarks that she could have fought back if she wanted to, but she didn't. Stunned, Shinichi slowly thinks about everyone who's died in front of him, about his mother. He finally breaks down and starts crying, so Murano approaches him and asks if he's back, and he smilingly says his tears are. Later, Shinichi is taken to a government testing facility where a man named Uragami is being used to identify who might be a parasite or has the ability to sense them, and when Uragami sees Shinichi, he senses something strange, so he tells the detectives to order Shinichi to look him right in the eyes, and Uragami locks the hell in. Uragami wonders what the deal is with Shinichi and remarks that he can at least tell he's human. The detectives wonder what's up with Uragami, since he's acting like a totally different person now. He remarks that it's not like he thinks he's all that special and believes he can tell humans and monsters apart because he fooled around with humans a lot and knows more about the qualities this life form possesses than anyone else. When he found one of them, he was definitely shocked, since it's not every day that you see an alien being walking in a crowd wearing human clothes. If he stared at a crowd, he'd be lucky to see two come through in an hour. He didn't really approach them, since even he thought they seemed to be dangerous. He was looking forward to see all the things they did, but it wasn't all that different from what he used to do. As he was inspecting the body, police suddenly arrived on the scene and thought he was the one who had committed the murder. Presently, the detectives see that he's taking his sweet time, so a woman tells Hirama they can't drag this out any longer. He orders Uragami to look at Shinichi, since he kept his cool during their questioning but seems to be afraid this time. Uragami says he must have imagined it, since he thought he saw something not human in Shinichi's eyes, but when he takes a good long look, there's nothing to it. Later, Shinichi asks Hirama about Tamura's baby, so he says he's still being tested to make sure he's human, since he was raised by a parasite after all, and once the tests are done, the baby will be placed with a foster family. Meanwhile, the government is considering launching a major operation to get rid of all the parasites. Hirama thinks about using Uragami to help identify parasites during the mission, but Yamagishi, the head of the military forces, says they shouldn't involve him. Meanwhile, Goto and Hirokawa talk about how Tamura, Kusano, and their allies are now gone and realize that the government is their biggest threat now and might destroy them. Shinichi returns to school and tries to get back to a normal life. Just as he's about to go home with Murano, Hirama shows up and asks for his help. Murano becomes upset about all the killing and violence connected to the parasites, and frustrated that Shinichi keeps getting involved in it. She's the only sensible person here. Later, Yamagishi asks Shinichi what kind of weapons would work best against the parasites, so he suggests using flamethrowers. The next morning, the military officially starts their attack and soldiers storm the building where Hirokawa has set up his base. During the operation, both Uragami and Shinichi are brought in to help pick out parasites hiding among a group of civilians, but neither of them is successful, since they need to be closer or see the people directly to identify them properly. However, a female parasite is finally found by the military's X-ray scanners. As civilians are walking in a line, A group of soldiers quickly shoot the female parasite and tries to fight back, but only damages the gun and slowly dies from blood loss after being hit in the heart. A soldier remarks that they are not life forms, they are machines operated by demons. To stop a machine, they only need to destroy its motor. It'll take heavy damage over a large spread, not focused penetration to destroy the heart. What they need are shotguns loaded with shells. Controlling the crowd, other situations tell civilians to not worry because the situation is still under control and they'll wait a few minutes to assess the situation before resuming evacuations. After going through a couple more rounds of evacuations, they begin to think that the parasites might be using some kind of telepathy to figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, Hirokawa speaks to the military, asking them to stay calm and avoid scaring the civilians on the second floor. He warns that seeing armed men might cause people to panic in Yamagishi. The officer in charge tells his men to delay Hirokawa and his group and brings in Uragami. While Uragami begs Katsumeta to take off his handcuffs, Shinichi quietly asks Miji if they should get involved. The soldiers raise their weapons at the group of people, but Hirokawa angrily tells them off for pointing guns at civilians. Suddenly, one of the parasites, pretending to be a regular person, asks to be escorted out, so the soldiers agree but order everyone to walk in a single file line to keep things under control. Uragami then steps forward and points out 3 people he believes are parasites. One of them panics and tries to run, but he's shot and turns out to be a regular human. Another parasite is exposed and suddenly attacks, slicing off a soldier's head. In the chaos, another disguised parasite is also shot and the crowd starts panicking as the parasites start attacking and people begin to scream. While this happens, Hirokawa and his parasite allies head up to the second floor without being stopped. Yamagishi, Uragami, Katsumata and more soldiers rush inside and he orders everyone to get down and stay still or they'll be shot. A human ignores the warning and stands up, and Yamagishi immediately has him shot. He puts Kisagari's squad in charge of watching the civilians and tells them to shoot anyone acting strangely before survivors from other squads helps join his team to help the rest of the building. Downstairs, a parasite grabs a person and tries to escape, but the Kisagari squad opens fire and they end up hitting the parasite in the face, killing it. Meanwhile, Goto and Hirokawa talk in private and Goto asks why Hirokawa didn't try to escape, so Hirokawa asks him the same. Goto says he wanted to watch the fight for a bit, so Hirokawa says he thought running away was pointless, which is why he stayed. Yamagishi gets news that the Yuzuki squad had found Hirokawa's group near the city council wing but lost contact after that. He sends the Shingetsu squad to take the main route and tells Mitsuki and Satsuki squads with Uragami to head to the council wing. They find the Yuzuki squad dead, having been defeated by Hirokawa's team. Later, Yamagishi's team runs into a parasite pretending to be hurt and Yamagishi immediately shoots it. Uragami identifies another parasite, and the soldiers chase and kill it before Goto appears. He quickly realizes the soldiers are using large shotgun blasts to kill parasites. Uragami instantly recognizes Goto as a parasite and runs, so Katsumeta goes after him, and Uragami warns that Goto doesn't look human at all. Goto enters a room with 5 soldiers and gives them 2 minutes to shoot. He takes all the bullets, then unexpectedly shoots them back from his body, killing all 5, after which Katsumeta forces Uragami to go back with him at gunpoint. The Shingetsu squad arrives at a meeting room, where Hirokawa calmly waits for them. Hirokawa welcomes the squad and admits one could say their victory is assured in this case. He declares that they should use their guns for something grander than shooting him and prioritize the survival of humanity. The squad quickly shoots him down, but they realize he was actually a human. Miji tells Shinichi they should move on now since there's nothing more they can do here. As Yamagishi's squad is moving through a hallway, they suddenly confront Goto and fire some rounds at him, but none of them are effective. Yamagishi remarks that they can't fire well here, so they should take the fight to a more open spot. He orders his men to follow him upstairs to the roof, thinking it will give them a better chance to track and take down Goto. However, Goto reveals that he's already killed them all. He steps onto the roof and gets ready to kill him, so Yamagishi pulls out every gun he has and starts shooting. Goto dodges most of the shots and rushes forward, knocking Yamagishi to the ground. Yamagishi smilingly thinks about Shinichi before Goto slashes off his head and throws it down. He jumps down in front of Shinichi and mutters that he should kill him, but he admits he can't do that right now and jumps away. Harama turns to Shinichi and asks him what he's hiding, so Shinichi hurriedly says he didn't know he was this strong. That night, Shinichi has a nightmare and wakes to find Miji awake, calling his name. He asks for ways to beat Goto, so Miji suggests calling the military, but he declines, so they decide to escape to the countryside. The next morning, Shinichi skips school and goes for a walk. He quickly realizes Miji has fallen asleep, which makes him panic as he imagines Goto's face on everyone he sees. Talk about being scared of a bully. 2 men try to intimidate him, but seeing Goto's face in theirs, Shinichi knocks them both out. That evening, he runs into Murano as she's coming back from school. She notices the worry on his face and asks what's wrong, so Shinichi hugs her too tightly, making her push him away. He runs off, but later Murano finds him sitting alone at the park. She sits beside him and he apologizes for earlier, but she dismisses it and invites him to her home. They sleep together, and later at night, Shinichi confesses that he loves her, so she smilingly says he always drops bombshells like that at the end, and they kiss each other as Shinichi remarks that he's gonna live no matter what it takes. The morning after leaving Murano's house, Shinichi senses Goto nearby through Miji, so they steal a car and crash into Goto's vehicle, but Goto heads into the forest, and Miji urges Shinichi to escape. After a short panic attack, Shinichi calms down, and Miji suggests that since Goto can only detect parasites, they will split up. Miji will hide in one direction, Shinichi in another, and they will use fire to injure Goto long enough for Miji to cut off his head. Miji detaches and positions himself, leading Goto away from Shinichi. Goto mocks Shinichi for hiding, but Miji copies Shinichi's voice to grab his attention, and Shinichi takes the chance to throw a flaming spear into Goto's leg, making him stumble. Miji jumps in and slashes Goto's neck, but doesn't fully cut it. As Goto reattaches his head, Miji tells Shinichi to run. Being too far from his host, Miji slowly weakens and dies. Shinichi runs away and falls into a river, but he hurriedly gets out of it and starts crying as he realizes his right arm and Miji are gone, but really almost lost an arm and a leg. He finds an old woman's house and asks for shelter, so she lets him stay the night. The next day, she takes him grocery shopping, and over the next few days, he helps her out. One night, Shinichi dreams of a smaller Miji but barely recognizes him. When he wakes, a small eye opens on his right hand before Miji falls back asleep. Later, a villager rushes in, saying he saw Goto eating a corpse. The elders accuse Shinichi of bringing a monster, and that night, Shinichi tells the old woman the truth, saying he needs to fight Goto to protect those he cares about. She urges him to run instead, so when he tries to leave, she hands him a butcher's knife and he slowly leaves. As Shinichi walks through the forest, he admits he shouldn't have survived this long and remarks that he isn't scared this time. He suddenly senses Goto and realizes he can't detect him since he's human now. Seeing an opportunity, Shinichi quietly approaches him with a cleaver. But Goto quickly wakes up and blocks the attack, so Shinichi quickly hides in the bushes as Goto scans the area. Shinichi knows he can't defeat Goto completely, but he believes he might be able to injure him enough to protect the village. Remembering advice from the old woman, he notices a strong tree branch, climbs into the tree and waits. When Goto walks underneath, Shinichi jumps, aiming for his head, but Goto blocks the attack and injures him. Shinichi desperately calls out to Miji, but he doesn't answer while Goto hardens his body, punches Shinichi in the stomach, and sends him crashing. Shinichi warily almost gives up, but he remembers what Tamura said. As Goto approaches him, Shinichi calms himself and remembers the weak spot on Goto's lower back. Spotting a rusty iron rod in the trash, he grabs it and stabs the weak point, so Goto screams in pain and Shinichi gets away. Go pulls out the rod and continues chasing him, eventually ripping up the tree Shinichi hides behind. Before attacking, Goto asks how he knew about the weak spot, so explains he once saw him bleed there and decided to take a chance. Goto acknowledges him and gets ready to kill him, but a small part of Miji suddenly blocks the strike and merges back into Shinichi's hand. Goto starts losing control of the parasites in his body, and Miji realizes the rust on the rod probably carried toxins from the garbage, poisoning him. He swiftly attacks and slashes through Goto, making his body explode. As they're walking, Miji admits he learned a lot while he was inside Goto, but he suddenly senses that Goto is trying to regenerate himself. He says the chance of that happening is 50-50, and he might be weaker, but they still have to kill him. Miji insists Shinichi should finish him, so Shinichi hesitates, but he still goes back and completely destroys Goto. The next morning, the villagers find Goto's body in the forest, surprising the woman who finds the knife beside her front door. Meanwhile, Shinichi heads back home. A few days after returning to the city, Shinichi searches online for signs of parasite activity. He learns that parasites have adjusted to human life, enjoying normal food like steak and no longer relying on humans as prey. One night, Miji unsuccessfully tries to wake Shinichi up and enters his dreams. He announces he's going into hibernation, so Shinichi asks why, and Miji explains he needs time to process everything learned from Goto's body. Shinichi's arm will still work, but Miji may never wake up, meaning Shinichi will have to move on without him. Shinichi hurriedly tells him to not do that, but he says he has to. Before fading away, he warns Shinichi to watch for traffic accidents, asks him to forget the dream, and thanks him for being his host. Shinichi wakes up remembering everything, and after venting in frustration, he prepares for a study session with Murano. Meeting her in the city, he learns she and her friends have already graduated and gotten into college. Feeling behind, Shinichi asks her to help him prepare for his entrance exams, so they meet in a park to study, but Shinichi's thoughts drift to Miji, and everything they've been through. Murano snaps him back to reality and mentions that crime rates are rising, though not because of parasites. Later, they leave the park without noticing Origami watching them. Back in the city, Shinichi spots him lurking in an alley, so he hands Murano his bag and goes to confront him. However, Origami kidnaps Murano and takes her to a rooftop, killing 2 civilians in front of her. When Shinichi arrives, Origami demands to know what Shinichi really is, madly declaring that humans are meant to be cannibals but have more control than he does. He exposes Shinichi's old chest wound to Murano, so he admits he's weaker now and offers to explain everything if Origami lets her go, but Murano cuts him off, urging him to call the police and accept her fate. Shinichi ignores her, charging forward and breaking Origami's jaw. He really gave him a knuckle sandwich. Origami lets Murano go but pushes her off the roof. Shinichi rushes forward to grab her, misses, so Midges suddenly returns and helps him catch her. As he pulls Murano to safety, Shinichi inwardly thanks Miji and happily remarks that he's still alive. Shinichi slowly tells Murano he retrieved the dog and buried it under a tree, so she smilingly says she knows and tells him he did that because he's Shinichi. Shinichi smilingly remarks that humans keep trying to understand each other on small levels and get closer until their lives one day end.